You checked your phone 12 seconds ago, no vibration, no sound, no notification, but your hand reaches for it again before you even realize what you're doing. It looks like a harmless habit, but maybe your hand is reaching for more than a notification. Once you see what you're really reaching for, silence starts to feel very different. Because the real question isn't why you look at the screen. It's why an empty screen doesn't end the urge. Because every empty check teaches your brain that silence is a problem it needs to solve. If there is nothing new, why do you want to check again 30 seconds later? The answer begins in the moment just before your hand moves, a moment so small that most people never notice it. A notification is simple, the phone buzzes and you respond. But checking without a notification begins somewhere else. Maybe your work becomes difficult, a conversation ends, you remember the message someone still hasn't answered, or there is simply a quiet second with nothing demanding your attention. Then your hand moves. For one brief moment, checking interrupts whatever you were feeling. Before the screen lights up, there could be something there, a reply, an invitation, a change, proof that the waiting is over. That possibility matters. Your brain is pulled not only by the reward but by the chance of one. So before you even see the empty screen, checking has already given you a brief escape. If you want to catch patterns like this before they start running your day, subscribe. The smallest habits can tell you a lot about what's happening underneath. Here is the first useful test. The next time you catch yourself checking without a notification, don't ask, "Why am I addicted to my phone?" Ask, "What changed inside me 5 seconds ago?" That question can catch the trigger before the habit covers it up. Sometimes the trigger is boredom, but boredom is only the surface. Underneath it may be uncertainty, social discomfort, loneliness, or resistance to the thing in front of you. And one trigger is especially powerful, waiting for another person. That is when checking stops being about the device. You are checking how you feel. Imagine you sent someone a message that mattered. You were honest, maybe more honest than usual. Then they didn't reply. You know they could be busy, you know people have lives, you can explain all of that logically. And still you check. At 9:14 nothing. At 9:17 nothing. At 9:21 you open the same conversation again, as if looking harder might produce a different answer. You aren't looking for new information, you're checking whether the waiting feels any different now. A reply could mean you are remembered, wanted, forgiven, included, or safe. The exact meaning depends on the person and the moment, but when a message gets tied to one of those needs, the empty screen starts to feel personal. It feels like an unresolved question. And unresolved questions are difficult to leave alone. This is why the habit can become stronger even when the phone keeps disappointing you. Each check briefly offers hope, then returns you to uncertainty. Hope, uncertainty. Hope, uncertainty. The cycle does not close. It resets. Now notice the cost. Every empty check can feel like a tiny new rejection, even when no one has rejected you. Then you ask the same screen to fix the feeling it just made worse. After a while, your brain starts scanning for whatever still hasn't arrived. A quiet elevator ride disappears, the pause before a meeting disappears, the minute after you finish eating disappears. Every empty space becomes a place to search for proof that something has happened. Eventually, stillness itself can begin to feel wrong. People often explain this with dopamine. But if dopamine were the whole answer, why do you check most when one specific person hasn't replied? Variable rewards still matter. When the reward is unpredictable, the next check could be the one that pays. But dopamine doesn't explain why certain checks hit harder than others. Your phone isn't just a reward machine. It also gives you a quick way out of whatever you're feeling. When work makes you feel incapable, the screen offers a different world. When you feel lonely, it offers the possibility of connection. When you are unsure where you stand with someone, it offers the possibility of an answer. Not necessarily the answer you want. Just an answer. And sometimes you don't even need good news, you just need the waiting to end. Until the answer arrives, checking lets you feel as though you're doing something. You are. Your hand is busy, but the uncertainty hasn't moved. Try a simple thought experiment. Put your phone in another room for 10 minutes, not as a productivity challenge but as an observation. Then notice what appears. Do you suddenly remember 3 people who might have messaged? Do you feel a phantom vibration? Do you begin negotiating with yourself about one important reason to look? That discomfort tells you something. It shows you what all that checking normally helps you avoid. And this is where the habit starts taking more than a few seconds of your time. Checking over and over breaks your focus, but the deeper cost is that you get worse at sitting with anything that hasn't been resolved yet. A difficult task feels unfinished, so you check. A relationship feels uncertain, so you check. An ordinary moment feels empty, so you check. Your phone becomes the quickest way out whenever something feels unfinished. That can spill into relationships. You may read meaning into response times, send another message to reduce your anxiety, become cold before the other person has had a chance to respond. Or decide that silence means something painful because the screen gives you no evidence to the contrary. The habit can also make rest less restorative. You sit down, but part of your attention remains stationed at the door, waiting for something to arrive. Your body is still. Your attention is. Of course, checking your phone doesn't mean you're broken, and wanting a reply doesn't make you needy. Phones make checking effortless, and we've all gotten used to fast replies. But the phone can turn a small discomfort into a loop you repeat all day. So breaking the pattern requires more than hiding the phone or setting a timer. Those can help, but they do not answer the question your hand is asking every time it reaches for the screen. You have to notice what you need before your brain turns that need into check your phone. Start with 10 seconds. When your hand reaches for the phone without a sound or vibration, pause before the screen lights up. Then name what you want from the check. Information. Relief. Escape. Reassurance. Be specific. I want to know whether they replied is information. I want their reply to prove they aren't upset with me is reassurance. Those are not the same need, so they cannot be solved in the same way. If you need information, choose a time when you will check. That turns endless monitoring into a decision. If you need escape, identify the exact thing you are escaping from, then make it smaller. Don't finish the project. Write one sentence, open one document, stay for 2 more minutes. But if you need reassurance, do not force the empty screen to provide it. Ask what conclusion you are drawing from the silence and whether silence can actually prove that conclusion. Usually it cannot. The pause may feel almost pointless at first, the urge may still be there. That is expected because the goal is not to make the urge disappear instantly. The goal is to discover that an urge can rise without becoming an instruction. And that leads to the real reason nothing can be so compelling. You keep checking not despite the fact that nothing happened, but because nothing happened. Nothing means the question is still open, the relationship is still uncertain, the task is still uncomfortable, the empty moment is still empty. Checking is how you try to bargain with not knowing. But every time you let one quiet moment remain quiet, something changes. You stop asking the screen to tell you where you stand, and you learn that not knowing doesn't have to decide what you do next. So the next time your hand reaches for your phone and there was no vibration, stop before the screen lights up. Ask one question. What am I hoping this notification will let me feel? The answer is what you were really checking for.